Faith Church, hope you are well today. This coming Sunday, we are going to look at one of the most brilliant passages in not just the Old Testament, but perhaps the entire Bible, and that's the encounter that Isaiah has with the Lord. It's this revelation he receives, this vision when he goes into the temple one day, and you can read it in Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 to 8. It's short. You may want to read a little further on if you want, but those will be the verses we'll look at Sunday. And I've got a little miniature assignment for you if you're willing to accept it before Sunday, and that would be to read through the story and use your imaginations, try to picture the scene, and consider what are the things that we learn here about God. It's not often that somebody has such a clear picture into the inner court of the heavenly realms to see God seated on his throne. And so we ought to take advantage of what Isaiah sees here and think for ourselves, what do we learn here about the Lord God? And so take some time to think about that before Sunday. If you want to go a bit deeper, I would also encourage you to read the story of Peter's encounter with Christ in the boat that is recorded in Luke chapter 5, verses 1 to 11. A lot of people see a lot of similarities in these two stories. I think you might as well. We're not going to spend much time on this Sunday, if at all, but it's another story that I would ask you to look at the same question. What do we learn here about God through Peter's encounter? In both of these, we learn stories. We learn not just about the character and the nature of God himself, but also about how we are to worship him. In fact, one of the great revelations for me in studying this text in Isaiah has been to see the 5 different movements that of worship that happen in Isaiah's vision, and come to realize that we, every single time we gather for worship on a Sunday morning, or any time really, that we rehearse these same 5 movements, and for good reason. And so you may begin to think about that a bit. One extra thing I'd add is that one of the most striking things about Isaiah's vision is the fact that he sees the Lord who is seated on the heavenly throne. And things in Isaiah's world were crumbling, were chaotic. Things were not going well. The king had just died after 50 years, so there's political turmoil, and yet there is God sitting on the throne in heaven, not anxious, not frantic, in authority over all of it. That is a really good reminder for us today. Been listening to a podcast that goes through the turbulent times of 1968 in America. I was just 2 years old, so for me, they weren't too turbulent, but some of you remember more clearly than I would that was a very chaotic year in the American political and social scene. 2 assassinations, both Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, a Democratic convention in Chicago that turned violent, the President of the United States deciding not to run again, the Vietnam War falling apart, all sorts of things happening. It reminded me 2 things. One, that we think the age we're living in perhaps there's never been a time that's as chaotic and difficult, and yet it's not true. Every generation, every season, there's really hard things going on. But in 1968 or in 2024 or the year when Isaiah had this vision, the Lord is consistently on his throne, sovereign, working out his purposes in this world. We're not exactly sure how, but we have hope and trust that God will bring history to a culmination when heaven comes to earth and everything is set right again. This is our hope, and we have to live out of this hope, regardless of the circumstances today. So be encouraged wherever you are today. I pray that you would sense the love of God, your Father, the grace of Christ, his Son, and the fellowship, the presence of the Spirit with you. Peace.